Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the aftermath on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on the aftermath, or you should say you can find me on Twitter doing the aftermath at Joe Miller Wired. It is so good to have every single one of you joining me right now to talk about this Buffalo Bills versus Ravens game. Just a couple quick Joe thoughts, kind of my feelings, my emotions that kind of went into this game and kind of what happened and how we woke up this morning on Monday. Please do me a favor. Please, whatever platform you are viewing this vidcast on, please subscribe. So if you're watching me live on YouTube right now, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notify me so you can get all of the content from myself, John, and Jerry, and all the contributors here at Overreaction. If you are listening to this in podcast form, also please like, please subscribe, and don't be afraid to potentially leave a review. We would appreciate that. As I always like to say, whether this podcast finds you around a cup of coffee, at the gym with your AirPods in, on the drive to work, or watching me live right now, it is so good to have you. And let me say one more time, welcome. This football game required a follow-up. And I don't know how to say it any other way than that. You know, we did the post-game show, Jerry and I did, after this football game last night late, and I woke up and it wasn't cathartic enough for me, I think is kind of where I landed. There has been some hemming and hawing inside of myself as far as whether or not I want to do a solo show, and it's been a yes, no type of a situation. And we'll see how this goes, for lack of a better way of kind of saying that. But this game required a response. So here we are. I'm not sure, again, if you'll get one of these going forward every week, but we'll see. We'll see. John, Jerry, and I are trying to figure all this stuff out. So this is kind of where we're at the moment. I don't even know that John knows I'm doing this. I think I told Jerry and didn't tell John. It is what it is. To that point, though, real quick, John, Jerry, and I have been doing a lot of work to try to get you guys good content, a lot of good information. Please keep in mind, before we get into the meat of this football game, we do have a website, overreactionbuffalo.com. On that website, you can find all the Bills pressers. You can find all the Bills' latest news. You can find our content. And there's also a page there called Bills on the Wire that pulls in every national media article that mentions the Buffalo Bills. That's overreactionbuffalo.com. And we also did just start a Discord channel. If you're looking for the Discord information, if you're what Jerry calls an affectionate Discord junkie, and you love that type of a community, we have a Discord channel. There is a paywall for a couple of the channels, the Bills Game Day Live, Any Game Day Live, all 22, and some sports betting channels. But for the most part, that Discord is free. But we would love to have you check that out if you wanted to give it a run. Again, if you're looking for an invite, please contact the Overreaction Buff Twitter, or just reach out to us at overreactionsports@gmail.com. I'll get you the invite, whatever it is. But yeah, let's get into this. As I'm sipping a cup of coffee. Anticipation and expectations were high, going into this Ravens contest in Baltimore for Sunday Night Football prime time, right? NBC, Sunday Night Football. The Bills at 3-0, surprisingly looking like the best team in the NFL through the first 3 weeks of the season. And a lot of people were talking about just Josh Allen, and is this his MVP season, and where are the Bills going to be, and who do they look like? And leading the league in points scored at averaging, I think, 37 points. The defense playing well, especially coming off of the embarrassing defeat of the Jaguars on Monday Night Football just 6 days ago, now 7, being that today is Monday, the time that I'm recording this podcast. The Bills so far this year, as I said, have been unstoppable on offense and very, let's just call it, surprising on defense. Everybody eats was a phrase. A lot of us were kind of wait and see on that phrase. But after 3 weeks viewing this offense, what Joe Brady was doing, it seemed like the Bills' lack of a number one wide receiver and choking down $31 million cap hit due to the dealing of Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans, who we're going to see this week. After that happened, it seemed like the smartest, most difficult thing this team has done since probably moving on from Tremaine Edwards just a couple years ago, with nothing but a giant question mark behind him in Terrell Bernard. The Bills came out of that situation looking like aces. Terrell Bernard, who was missed on this defense. I am the guy that last year before the season started made the statement that, there is no starting middle linebacker on this football team, but that was a very difficult decision for the Bills, and man, did it turn out well. This too, moving on from Stephon Diggs, seemed like a very difficult decision that was the right one. Defensively, conversations were being had on the amazing development that this coaching staff has been doing with all these young players as they're stepping in for the players that have not only been jettisoned or left, but also the injuries to Matt Milano, to Terrell Bernard, to Taron Johnson. The huge shoes that these young guys have been filling when we're talking about Ingram, and we're talking about Cam Lewis, and we're talking about Dorian Williams, and we're talking about Balin Spector. We're just talking about a lot of young guys that were filling huge shoes, and we were all, raving about it. But the Mafia finds itself this morning waking up to the reality that this team they may not be who we thought they were. Now, again, even with that and with my emotions and how I'm feeling today, please keep in mind, and I'll finish this show as such, it's a long season. This is week 4. But when you embarrass a team on Monday Night Football, the way the Bills did, it's a particularly tough pill to swallow when you are embarrassed yourself on Sunday Night Football just 6 days later. From the opening of the game, the Bills looked like they didn't belong on that football field with the Ravens, aside from a very short couple of minutes at the start of the second half, I would say. The Ravens were relentless in their desire to run through the Bills. They were the tougher team. They were the more prepared team, the better coached team, as Coach McDermott said. They were the more disciplined team. There was nothing about that game that wasn't lopsided. But in my opinion, this game can be summed up with one of the worst play calls that I've seen from this team, probably since, let's just call it the fake punt to Damar Hamlin in the AFC playoff game against the Chiefs last year. Completely predictable the way that it was done. It was horribly executed, incredibly poorly timed. Both plays probably summing up the other 59 minutes of their respective football games. It just wasn't great. And I can't seem to find exactly what the thought was in this situation, let alone the Chiefs game last year, what they were thinking, the way that they executed it. But even in this game, that flea flicker, razzle dazzle play that they called coming out of the second half, when the Bills defense clearly gets a great stop, something they did not do in the first half at all. If you remember, the Ravens did not punt in the first half. The Buffalo Bills defense gets a stop, a really good stop. The offense comes down and answers, scores a touchdown right away. The defense then again bows its back and stops the Ravens defense to give the Buffalo Bills an opportunity to go to 21-17 in that football game and be right back in the thick of things. And even in that second drive of the second half, the Bills, I don't have the plays in front of me. I probably should have looked them up, but we're chewing off, what was there, 4 plays of huge chunk run yards. And then that play happens. Coach McDermott said that he was going to have a conversation with Joe Brady this week just about those types of plays and timing them out. And I challenged Jerry last night on the Overreaction post-game show. I don't believe for a second that Sean wasn't aware that play was about to be called. I don't believe for a second that Sean didn't see the lineup and know beforehand what was happening. Josh said that Joe called a shot play, which probably brings into question that as well. Why call a shot play there? The momentum in the game is clearly swinging towards you. You have a growing momentum advantage. You're executing well. You're running the ball well. Why call a shot play there? What there's no nail in the coffin. You're better off being methodical at that point, right? And continuing to just crush the will of your opponent, begin to oppose your will or continue to impose your will on your opponent at that point. It just wasn't great. I can't seem to find, as I dig, as I watch pressers, as I listen to conversations, as I read other people or listen to other people's comments about that moment of the game, I can't figure out what the thought was there. Joe Brady, who has been great this season, took away everything that has made this team great so far this season: motions, misdirections, pre-snap action. And it did they spend the whole week for this one play? I mean, is that effectively what they did? Like, there wasn't even motion on that play to kind of throw it off. It was just a gimmick play. And I'm not sure that there's a world where you see Josh Allen split out wide to the left and Curtis Samuel's the quarterback, that the defense is thinking, oh, Curtis Samuel's throwing this football. I mean, maybe they're thinking Wildcat. And even when you look at that play in general in the NFL over the last several seasons, it hasn't been crazy effective, even if you ran it as a Wildcat. It was dead from the snap. And it seemed like there was no conversation with the players on what to do if it got blown up. It was almost, maybe there was. I mean, everything I'm giving you is pure speculation out of emotion that I have for what I saw. But when Samuel takes the snap and he darts to his left to get to Josh to throw him the flea flicker, and Josh is supposed to come around, and the defense is imploding the offensive line, or at least there's free rushers coming at him, you don't haphazardly hot potato throw the ball to Josh Allen at that point. You fall on it. And if you do panic, Curtis Samuel, and you chuck the ball at Josh Allen and say, here, you take it, Josh Allen in that moment should do the best Peyton Manning version of Peyton Manning or Peyton Manning impression he could possibly do. If Peyton Manning's got the football field in open space and there's defensive players, giant linemen barreling down on him. But Josh is Josh, and Josh, it has that Superman characteristic. It's what we love about him. And he steps up, takes 3, 4, 5 steps up to give himself some room. He feels like he can get it downfield. And I feel like a piece of the puzzle that might be missing from this conversation is what position were the receivers in behind him, right? And I haven't looked at the all 22. There could have been a couple wide open guys down the field. And if he could have just got the ball off, aside of Josh getting chucked 3 feet into the turf, maybe this conversation is different if he completes that pass. Maybe it's like, man, that was a great play. That was a great pass. It almost got blown up. But Josh completed the ball, touchdown. It's now 17-21. We're going to kick the ball back to the Ravens. Hope Josh is okay. Maybe let's not do that again, but it worked. But that's not what happened at all. Van Noy comes through and gets his arm on Josh Allen's throwing arm, and Josh Allen comes through with an empty ball. And we're all very aware of the injury history with Josh Allen's elbow. Now, Josh has since said that his elbow is fine. He's told us that before. But it didn't necessarily seem to bother him through the rest of the game as he was throwing heaters all over the field in the fourth quarter in the rain. And then the other defensive player, the defensive lineman, I'm not sure who it was, gave him the free chuck and basically chucked him straight into the dirt. Maybe the most real injured moment in the sense of Josh rolling over and having a kind of like what just happened moment, that we've seen probably in his career. It just wasn't great. But even in the confusion of what we watched in this football game, the season, like I said, isn't over. But we've been asking questions all off season about this football team. Jerry Ostrowski and his 3 keys to the game on the Big O Show on Thursday, said in that, and he said it before this game as well. There's a lot of questions that are going to be answered in this football game because of the opponent that they have, the Ravens, who are a much bigger, much more physical football team. I said pregame, my biggest concern in this game is the middle of the Bills' defensive backfield with Likely, with Andrews, with Lamar, with Derrick Henry, with Flowers, everybody that they've got on that team that can expose the middle of that football field. Expose it they did. We've been asking questions all off season and in preseason and even into the first 3 weeks of this season around whether or not the play we've seen from some of these young defensive players is sustainable. And I'm not saying that question has been answered. That's not what I'm saying. The Bills got beat. They got their butts handed to them in this football game. But there's three possible conclusions that you can come to from this football game, from what you watched. Either the Ravens are in a different league, a different class than the Buffalo Bills as a whole, regardless of who is on the field right now. So it wouldn't have mattered if Bernard, Johnson, right, and Milano were on the field. You know, is the answer that the Ravens, you saw the real version of the Ravens in this team, and they are a good football team, better than the Bills. That's one. Two, the Ravens are a good football team, but the Bills desperately need Bernard and Johnson and Milano to be in the lineup, to be on the field, to beat elite teams in 2024. One of those two things can absolutely be true. Either the Ravens are that much better than the Bills, regardless, or the Ravens are a good football team, a great football team, and the Bills are too. They just need the players they were missing. And then the third option is an option that I don't like, and I don't want to believe that they read their press clippings all week, and maybe they didn't take their necessary steps to prepare and respond to the Ravens. We know it happens. Not that the Ravens are a team you would look past, but when you look at the way this defense and this offense has been playing over the first 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we'll throw away the first half of the Cardinals game. They have been playing extremely well. And when you completely dismantle and demolish a Jaguars team full of great names and good players, maybe you could see your head a little bit. But wrapping up this quick, hopeful aftermath show, and we'll see how these go and if we end up doing more. 3 weeks into the proverbial chest thumping from Bills Mafia, it's been profound, it's been loud, it's been coming from the media as well, kind of like yes and amening our chest thumping. You've got to ask yourself at this point, was it a little too early? And while the script for this season has not been written yet, there is a lot of football left to play. A lot of football left. 13 games, and the Bills are their record is 3-1. But even with that, there's a reality to the approach that we need to take this season is let's just wait and see for the rest of the year. Because I don't think there's a world where you can lose names like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. And I know that Jordan and Tre'Davious aren't playing well on the respective teams that they're on currently, but they still were incredible contributors on this team. You can't lose guys like Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, Taron Johnson, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, and even Stephon Diggs, players who made you a Super Bowl contender. You can't lose names like those and not expect to have a few bumps in the road. And that's what this game is when it all is said and done. It's a bump. And now it's about the response. Next week in Houston against another very good offensive and defensive football team. Not a team like the Ravens that's going to beat you up, but a team that's similar to the Bills, play a similar style to the Bills. The reality is even as we look ahead, this isn't getting any easier anytime soon. The Bills are staring down the barrel of a brutal stretch, playing again, as I said, Houston next week. They're in New Jersey against the Jets in a couple of weeks. We knew coming in that the first 8 weeks, when the schedule got released, the first 8 weeks of the schedule is brutal. Again, they're 3-1. Probably not how we thought they were going to start. I think I had them at 2-2 at this point. It's great. But we knew that the first half of the season was going to be rough. And despite the 3-0 jumpstart, we look like the Buffalo Bills still have an opportunity to be, right, the AFC East champions. The Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets. The Dolphins are obviously, the Patriots are the Patriots. The Dolphins, without Tua, are a shell of themselves. You're going to see that on Monday Night Football tonight, most likely. And the Jets are just the Jets. Time will tell. Time will absolutely tell where this team ends up at the end of the season. I think it's going to be good. It feels good to have had a conversation with you, my family, the Mafia, just about how I feel. Even if it is a little bit negative, it's not dire, right? There is hope. The Bills are 3-1. They face a 3-1 Texans team this week. They got the rest of the season ahead of them. You expect full well that they're going to learn from these mistakes and what happened in this game. But it's been great talking to you just for a couple of minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in with me. Monday evening, 8 p.m. live, the Off Tackle Show with John Fina. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 8 p.m. live on The Beat. We've got Jay Skursky from the Buffalo News with us. Wednesday, the Hump Day Hotline. Thursday, the Big O Show with Jerry Ostrowski. Friday, If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo. And then we will have a normally scheduled post-game show next week on Sundays. The Bills, I believe, play. Is it 1 o'clock? I know it's a Sunday game, but we're going to have a normal post-game show at 8 p.m. next week on Sunday. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. This has been the Aftermath. I guess I'm now the voice of the Aftermath for Bills Mafia. It's been good to have you. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Go Bills.